In current teen culture, wearing oversized vintage dresses is trendy, but there was a time that dressing like your mom or grandma wasn't as cool. What is now widely known as junior clothing wasn't an option prior to the 1930s. And we can thank St. Louis for that much desired separation between teens and older generations. St. Louis has no shortage of claims to fame, but from its founding as a fur trading hub to being the home of some major footwear and garment companies, fashion plays a major role in our city's history.
St. Louis is just filled with all kinds of just wacky, interesting stories.
Valerie Battle Kinzel is the author of Ready to Wear, a history of the footwear and garment district in St. Louis.
I am married to a man who is third and fourth generation footwear industry, international shoe company. And after 40 years of marriage and asking him countless questions, and he's like, I really don't know. My interest was piqued. So I started digging, found there was much to be said about the shoe industry, but also at the same time, simultaneously, there was the ready-to-wear garment industry in St. Louis too, and they both developed pretty much at the same time, but really made St. Louis a place to be for footwear and garments.
By the early 20th century, ready-to-wear dresses, meaning the clothes you selected in the store didn't need to be custom tailored, were already well established. Although the industry was no longer one size fits all, they needed to address the growing resistance of one style fits all. In 1929, a man named Irving Sorger was the merchandising manager of the St. Louis store Klein's, and he saw the opportunity to cater to a more specific market.
Mr. Sorger saw that there was a need for younger women, that their body shapes were not necessarily the same as their mothers and grandmothers, and maybe they didn't want to look exactly like them in clothes that were perhaps described as frumpy.
And where better to learn what young women wanted to wear than the fashion design students at Washington University.
And he went and looked at some of the designs, and he was just wowed by them. And what these girls were putting on their clothing, their designs, were fun sleeves and ruffles and interesting collars and embellishments like buttons and bows and cinched waists and, of course, shorter hemlines.
Mr. Sorger then sent a few of the designs to be made and hosted a fashion show. The dresses sold out immediately after the show, and from there, the market for junior dresses surged. Over the next few years, the number of dress manufacturers tripled, employing nearly 20,000 workers, and production in St. Louis was second in the country, next to New York City. Not only did this new market grow the garment district's dress companies, but it also formed a collaboration with the Washington University's dress design program. In 1941, an advisory board of fashion design students was assembled to help influence local dress designers. The board would rate mock-up designs and soon developed a successful track record.
In fact, it was such an influence that Life magazine, which was a staple on people's coffee tables in most of the 20th century, they came here in 1944 and did a huge story talking about how these girls were the key behind the junior segment.
The young design students were also learning from some influential instructors. Bessie Retch was an instructor of dress design in addition to her personal design work at Dorsa Dress Incorporated in St. Louis. In fact, Bessie's designs were so successful that she filed for and obtained a patent for some of her junior dress designs. And as the junior dress surge was beneficial to the garment district, it's even more worth mentioning the benefit it had for businesswomen. In a time before equal rights legislation and the women's liberation movement, it was rare for women to make it to the top of their career field. But junior dresses allowed women to dominate the field, even when the market conditions created some obstacles.
There was a woman designer here in St. Louis named Grace Ashley. She was the first designer to ever copyright her name as far as using it on products. And in the 30s and 40s, she came up with something called the Grace Ashley Studded Jewel Dress. And you have to remember there were shortages of many things during World War II. One of the things there were shortages of was fabric.
To navigate around this shortage, Grace Ashley's studded jewel dress only required fabric for one junior size dress, but then allowed for the buttons and studs to be interchangeable, making it seem like you had multiple dresses.
This was very popular, and she was a pretty smart woman too, in that she would only sell to one store per city, and that way it was looked at as sort of an exclusive item.
There are countless other successful designers that came out of St. Louis, in junior dresses, but also other garments and footwear. But by the 1970s, with the forming of labor unions and the increased cost of materials, the St. Louis Garment District saw a steep decline when companies realized they could save money by outsourcing production overseas.
And that really led to the demise of the companies here in St. Louis. But there is an upswing.
In the spirit of a true author, Valerie couldn't end her book with demise. So while St. Louis may never again be the world leader in junior dress design, there has been a recent resurgence in garment production companies.
New seamsters, new pattern makers, new people, new creative people, jewelry makers. And many of them are locating in refurbished buildings down on Washington Avenue.
For Living St. Louis, I'm Brooke Butler.